Welcome to the latest Industry Insights podcast. Industry Insights is a reservoir of articles, interviews and other content relating to business, entrepreneurialism, leadership, charity, career pathways and networking. We'll be exploring the many opportunities in building the global integrative medicine community and how you can get involved. This is FX Medicine. I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook. I'm here in Mullumbimby at Nirala Jacobi's new clinic. And boy, has it been a journey to get here. What a beautiful place of Australia this is. I'm here with Nirala and Rachel Arthur, and we're going to be discussing the Australian Naturopathic Summit. But first of all, I want to get a little bit of a feel for your new clinic, Nirala, because it's pretty spectacular. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, thanks for coming out, Andrew, and seeing it. We just moved in about 5 days ago, and it's built out of poured earth, and every area, every structure that we've designed has really eco, low toxicity, and feng shui, and all of it. So it's this incredibly beautiful little place that I can't wait to really see patients out of.
I was totally struck by the hexagonal sort of honeycomb look to the ceiling. It is just spectacular. It is just incredible.
Thank you. And the neighbours love the round windows, like a hobbit house kind of thing.
I'm also here with Rachel Arthur. Now, Rachel's a long-standing Mullumbimby-ite, springing from Mornington Peninsula, I understand, Rachel. Tell me more about your clinic, because I don't think I've been there.
Yeah, it's a clinic here in Mullum that I built several years ago. And it's just a lovely little space. We all love living up here because, you know, the patients can see outside at all times and it feels very low-key and informal and, yeah, so it's a beautiful place.
Now, you said a key word there and that is build.
Yeah.
And that really interests me because you have indeed built the Australian Naturopathic Summit. So what's the purpose, though? Why build a whole summit, a whole conference type thing for naturopaths where there's so many others, you know, mainly commercially led? Let's talk about that for a minute. Rachel?
Well, I think the key thing is there that you said that there are so many others, but the Australian Naturopathic Summit is completely unique. There's nothing like it. Everything else has a commercial interest, a very specific agenda behind it. And we, particularly Nirala and myself, as educators in the naturopathic profession for a long time in Australia, felt that there was a real gap in an opportunity for Australian naturopaths to really get good education, have an unbiased agenda, have a genuine networking opportunity, and really bring out the best in each other. And we felt that that was an opportunity that was being missed over and over again when we went out and spoke on other platforms and in other environments. So as a result, we hatched the idea that we would build it and see if people came, which they did by the shipload in 2016, which was thrilling. And then it built itself because what happened was the most extraordinary experience in 2016. We thought we were putting together the conference. We didn't realise quite that we were putting together a movement. The movement was reflected back to us by people's incredible experiences of being at that conference. So at any one time there was hugging, crying, laughing, things you don't generally see at the other conferences. And we had people saying things like, I've been in the profession for 30 years and I've never been to anything more important. So, you know, we realised that we really had built something at that point and that we had to follow that through.
And Nirala, you trained at Bastyr University in Oregon, Washington. So when you look at the naturopathic profession in the States, in some ways they're leaps and bounds ahead of what we have in Australia, primary care physicians, that sort of thing. Was it your training and, you know, your movement to Australia, where there are a lot more restrictions on the practice of naturopaths, that you saw a real need for professional development, mentorship, and indeed fellowship in the profession?
Yeah, it was very much like that. And to go back to how we actually met, Rachel and I, was about 3 years or 4 years, I can't remember now. But we met initially 10 years ago, probably. But we both, just like with any great idea, we both had exactly the same idea at the same time. And we met at another local conference, sweet little women's health conference. And we both had exactly the same idea, that I want to create something that is an invitation to naturopathic for any naturopathic practitioner to really experience the collegialism that we have in America. When I go every year for 20 years, I've gone to America once a year to attend this conference at the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians. And when we come together, and this is what I shared at the ANS 2016, it feels like I'm docking to the mothership. It feels like I'm getting something that I myself can't create by myself. I need the energy of other people. And I feel like we did that extremely well. There is a third person that is in this group. It's Kathryn Simpson, who was at the time was relatively newly graduated, was being mentored by Rachel. And all three of us, there was a magic energy to this whole project, because we also... we actually did a fundraising campaign on Possible that was basically like a pre-sale of tickets for the ANS 2016, because we wanted just to kind of put out a feeler to see what the response was, to see if people wanted what we longed for ourselves. And the response was just amazing. And I remember being up on that podium, we were supposed to just introduce, and I couldn't even speak. I was so overcome with emotion to have finally something like this in Australia. So it's a lot of work, as you can imagine, and it's an evolving process. It's more than just a summit, and it's a movement, but we don't really know. It's not tangible yet what it's going to be formed into. But we are looking at another conference on August 2018. So I'm really glad that we have this opportunity to talk to you about it, because we're still amazed at the feedback that we're getting from people.
It's really interesting you mentioned Kathryn as a new graduate. We were talking a little bit earlier about, you get your license and then you really learn to drive. I'm a registered nurse and we have a probationary period. GPs have an internship, pharmacists have a pre-reg year. Naturopaths don't get anything. How important did you think it was for young naturopaths or newly graduated naturopaths to receive this sort of summit where they get impartial education from their peers?
Well, that's really what Kathryn brought to the table. Kathryn was my student at SCU, and then I quickly picked her up and said, you can come work for me. And what she brought to the table was her concern that so many of her peers who she'd trained with that were so clever and showed so much promise were not following through and doing well in practice. And, that's where she recognised what the ANS could change for those people and that experience. I think the beauty of it, I mentioned before that there were people... We really had an even distribution of new grads to people who had been in the profession for decades. And I think it spoke to everybody in their own way.
So about the purpose of the ANS, the Australian Naturopathic Summit. It's going to be held in August.
Yep, August 24th, 25th, 26th in beautiful Lennox Heads, New South Wales.
And tell me a little bit about the topics, Nirala.
Well, it's a 3-day event, and my heart goes a little pitter-patter when I think about our program, because the very first day, Friday, is about the Vis Medicatrix Naturae, which is it's like the heart center of our medicine, and it means the healing power of nature. And so we will be focusing on all those old naturopathic treatments that people here or naturopaths here may not have been trained in, like hydrotherapy, the use of water. It's an ancient treatment. And so we have a fantastic speaker on that, the whole philosophy of naturopathic medicine, therapeutic fasting, etc. And the second day is more about clinical practice and how to upskill in clinical practice. And we got fantastic speakers about that, and Rachel can talk more about that. And then the third day is all about, improving your business skills. So it's an all-rounded sort of festival of naturopathy. It truly will be a festival because we've got marquees, we've got a chai tent, we've got specific instructions to the vendors, we have all sorts of surprises and wonderful ambience and networking areas and all that.
Now, you're also doing something a little bit unique with the ANS, the Australian Naturopathic Summit, with regards to something called a seed fund. So exactly what is the seed fund, Nirala?
So the seed fund, as I said, it's basically something that was born out of a lot of feedback that we got. And rather than trying to approach universities or colleges or training programs that offer naturopathic education and just, start rolling that huge boulder up a hill, we said, why don't we do something about it? And so we decided to dedicate 15% of all sponsorship funds towards the development of a seed fund, and eligible clinics that would like to have an intern can apply to this seed fund and then have an eligible intern placed in their clinic. And so it takes a little bit of the financial pressure off taking on a new graduate. So you don't have to fill up their days right away with patients. They can really learn a lot of things around the clinic. So we've taken that model from a sort of a model in America called the Naturopathic Education and Research Consortium in America, where some money is from sponsors and is really about that clinics can apply and then request an intern. So it's really pretty new in Australia. So we're very excited about that.
That's a huge undertaking, not just the Naturopathic Summit, but also the seed fund to think about. What are your thoughts, Rachel?
Well, strangely enough, it came about because we were shattered after 2016. And when we came back together for our first meeting in 2017 to debrief and reflect and make actually a decision about what the future looked like, we all felt very strongly that the amount of effort that we had put in would only really be something we were comfortable with if we could have a much bigger ripple effect this time around, that we could impact people, even though the impact, as Nirala said, we still hear even now people saying, that was the landmark event for me, it's changed my practice. But we're greedy. We went, it was such a lot of work. What would bring us back and make us do it again? And we said, we have to have a bigger impact. It has to be bigger than a 3-day event. And so, yes, we increased the capacity. We increased the days. It went from a 2-day event to a 3-day event. We increased the capacity. So we went up another 150 bums on seats. And then the third thing we did was we said, how can we extend the ripple effect beyond those people who attend and change something bigger in the profession? And that's where the Seed Fund was born. And that actually motivated all of us to dig in and put in effort again and say, right, we are really building something way bigger than a conference here.
One of the important things that you've got as speakers is clinicians in their own right who have done the hard yards building successful clinics. You say it's grown from 2 to 3 days and you've got more capacity now. Tell us a little bit more about the speakers that you're showcasing.
So we have far too many to mention. We have about 20 speakers. We have some return performances from absolute favourites from 2016, including Jason Horolac and Charmaine Dennis. But the rest of the clan are completely new to the ANS. We have real leaders, Mim Beam, of course, talking about breathwork. We have Sally Mathrick talking about therapeutic fasting. We have Dr. Kate Broderick talking about hydrotherapy. There's a lot of doctor, but obviously they're all naturopaths first and foremost. We have Greg Connolly. We have Sandra Valella. We have Jill Stannard, Jules Galloway. Like, it's a cast of thousands.
A whole team of naturopaths and herbalists coming from Gould, from Tasmania, to teach about herbal medicine manufacture. And so I think it'll be really like a lot of grassroots stuff, a lot of nitty gritty, wonderful naturopathic stuff mixed with how do we, about social media, or about, how do we rise above the noise in social media and compete with health bloggers, for example, as a topic. So yeah, we've got something for everyone. And
very, very diverse. Very diverse because of the three key areas that we're covering, from the traditional kind of vitalism and traditional modality areas through to clinical upskilling, very practical, concrete things. Herbal medicine, we have Dawn Whitten. We're very excited about Dawn and Chris Jenkins. And then, getting into the business side. And really, I'm very pumped about the business side. I mean, I'm pumped about it all, but I came off a meeting this morning talking with some of our presenters about that, and prepare to be surprised.
And engaged, I would imagine. It's really interesting that once you start mentioning business, it's almost like there's a guilt factor involved. And this seems to pervade naturopathy more so than other professions. Now, Nirala, can you tell us a little bit about that mindset and how you hope to change that in the forthcoming generations of naturopaths? And also, I think the big deal is, how do we get involved? How do people attend?
Well, that stuff's got to go. I mean, that has got to stop. There's low confidence and I'm not good enough, or pay me what you want, saying that to patients. That doesn't do anyone any favors. And I think that, like, in 2016, people were really genuinely surprised at how varied our profession was. As, we got a lot of feedback about, I had no idea I could be doing that. I could be going into research. I could be doing overseas, naturopathic medicine. So there's a lot of different avenues to actually channel your naturopathic spirit. It doesn't just have to be in clinical practice. But I tell fellow naturopaths all the time, because I also have a education platform in my clinic and in my business. And so that's something that I often talk about. It's like, you need to charge what you're really worth. And so that's a pet peeve of mine, to be honest, is that a lot of people, I think it's changing. I came about 13 years ago, and when I first came, it seemed like there was probably a lot more of that, where people were just were not really confident. And I find that not a reflection of the practitioner. I find that as a reflection of not getting the proper training in the education. So I think, that is, again, a symptom of a bigger problem. It's that we need to have better training.
I think this is a must, an absolute must for every registered Australian naturopathic practitioner. Indeed, I will extend the invitation to overseas. Please come along. How do people find out more? How do they book their tickets?
Just go to australiannaturopathicsummit.com.au and click on tickets, and you can go there right now and check us out, because there's a lot of information there. And yes, I really am glad that you extended the invitation, because the material is very relevant, not just to Australian naturopaths, but to international naturopaths.
It's an absolute must, and it's driven by two that I know, extremely dedicated Australian practitioners who just happen to be formidable women. Thank you very much for joining us on FX Medicine today.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
This is FX Medicine. I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook. If you enjoyed today's podcast, you can find more Industry Insights podcasts and resources under the Community tab on the FX Medicine website.